we go for launch.
5.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Anything can happen in the next half hour.
4.
My friend, we cannot keep this a secret any longer.
This whole thing is insane.
3.
Quiet, please. I am analyzing.
Where's the kaboom?
2.
There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
1.
Zardoz speaks to you, his chosen ones. The gun is good. Go forth and kill.
Who came here in the stone head?
I don't know.
It is the only path and passage into the vortex. You will show me how you come to be here. Tell me everything.
My name is Zed. For Zardoz, I am an exterminator. Caution, caution, you are approaching.
Look into the ring.
Took a woman in his name, Zardoz. Zardoz!
Is indestructible and everlasting.
Greetings, my fellow galactic travelers, and welcome back to Planet 8. This is your mission commander Larry speaking to you from our hidden base. Chief Engineer Bob is here by my side as always in the command center, and circling Planet 8 in our orbital spy satellite is Reconnaissance Officer Karen. And we are back. Welcome back to Planet 8 Podcast. Today's episode is going to be all about the classic, underrated, some of us think, Sean Connery film Zardoz. You see, I got my Zardoz costume here. Walker has her shirt, and we're fortunate enough. Well, Bob has his Mechagodzilla. Can never go wrong with Mechagodzilla. Lord Blood-Rah joins us again, and straight away we're going to kick it over to Lord Blood-Rah. Take it away.
As always, pleased to be here, especially to talk about, honestly, one of my favorite science fiction films from the early 70s. From 1974, John Boorman, written and directed. It's Zardoz. This is probably one of the most divisive films we're ever going to do on this podcast. Possibly one of the most divisive science fiction films ever made. If you've seen Zardoz, you probably either love it or hate it. Very few people just go, meh. You know, it's a very divisive film. And the way it's a very dense film. Now, the way I'm going to start off talking about this film is talk about the very first scene. Now, this first scene was added on the behest of the studio. The director did not want to add this scene into the film right at the top. The studio said, we want this scene in the film. So, first scene is just on a black background, the floating head of this fairly young man with a very theatrically drawn on mustache and goatee, wearing a kind of scarf headdress thing, floats in the background of this totally black background and says, I am Arthur Frayne, and I am Zardoz. I have lived 300 years, and I long to die, but death is no longer possible. I am an immortal. I present now my story, full of mystery and intrigue, rich in irony and most satirical. It is set deep in a possible future, so none of these events have yet occurred, but they may. Be warned, lest you end as I. In this tale, I am a fake god by occupation and a magician by inclination. Merlin is my hero. I am the puppet master. I manipulate many of the characters and events you will see. But I am invented too, for your entertainment and amusement. And you, poor creatures, who conjured you out of the clay? Is God in show business too? Now, and then it fades. Now, I usually don't like it when studios try to put a scene into a film that the director doesn't want. In this case, it was absolutely necessary, or you would be totally lost going into it. You needed that explanatory scene of what happened. Then we cut to this huge, it sounds so strange to try to describe this movie, cut to this huge stone head with this grimacing face floating through the sky. And it lands, and these men on horseback wearing, if you know anything about Zardoz, you've seen Sean Connery in the kind of, they call it a diaper, the puffy thing with the bandolero.
Mankini.
Yeah, the mankini, exactly.
Let me show you my red bottoms here. Hold on. Oh, never mind.
Get an X rating. These men on horseback, I almost said drive up to it, ride up to it. And Zardoz says, Zardoz speaks to you, his chosen ones. And basically, Zardoz is their god. They are a cult that believes in Zardoz, and Zardoz gives them guns and tells them to go out and kill the Brutals. The Brutals are essentially everybody else in this kind of barren post-apocalyptic hellscape that he lives in. Zardoz, out of the mouth of this huge, probably 6-7 story tall stone head, hundreds of rifles and pistols just it vomits these guns out.
And ammo too.
Yeah, just all of these weapons. And it tells them, it tells the exterminators, go forth and kill. And essentially, do not procreate. The gun is good. The gun shoots death. The penis is bad. The penis shoots seeds. Which basically creates the plague of man, which has befouled the earth for far too long. Next scene. We're inside the stone head, and Sean Connery as Zed, one of the exterminators, sneaks aboard the head and is taken to the vortex. Now, the vortex is the exterminator's idea of heaven. They're told if they die a good death, they will go to the vortex. When they get to the vortex is essentially a big hippie commune. Really. is kind
But
of
there's
kind of
one
what it
thing
is.
he
It's
does
very-
before he gets to the vortex, though, right?
Thank you. Yes. He's looking around the vortex, and it's full of grain that the exterminators put on board. There are bodies and bags lining the walls of it, and he's exploring this thing. And then when he's up like on the second floor, he sees somebody walk out, and he walks out like to the mouth and just kind of is looking out. Zed jumps down. The guy turns around and he shoots him. Zed shoots him. And it turns out who he has just shot is Arthur Frayne. It is Zardoz. And he says, "You fool, I could have shown you. You are nothing without me." And he falls out of the head. This is before it gets to the vortex. So, as I said, the vortex is essentially this hippie commune. And what we come to realize is the vortex is made of a people called the Eternals. They are immortal. They can die, but something called the Eternal Tabernacle, which is this vast, not mixture of magic, but this super technological machine, just regrows your body and puts your consciousness at the moment of death in that body when it reaches a certain age. So you do not die.
But
This Eternal Tabernacle will not let you die.
These are people that died via accidents, right? Because you can't die of old age.
You can't die. You can't die. Period. You can't. There's no way to die. If you die in an accident, then it will either repair you or if you're seriously injured, it'll repair you. That's what the bodies were inside the stone head. They were being picked up from the outskirts of the vortex and being taken in to be repaired. But if you die, it will regrow a body for you, and it won't allow you to die. And many of these people are so bored with immortality that they want to die. And Zed, I don't really want to spoil this film. I mean, is that okay? I mean, when Zed gets into the vortex, he's treated like an animal. He's treated like a beast, which to the Eternals he is. I'll tell you what the vortex is. What we come to find out the vortex is the Earth was dying some 300 years ago. This is set in 2293, by the way. The Earth was dying some 400 years ago. And the rich, the clever, and the powerful all took the remnants of, or everything they could of culture and society, and locked themselves in the vortex, which are these beautiful little communities protected by a force shield. And there are a number of them around the planet, though we only see one. We see Vortex 4. And to do that, one of the characters even says, we had to harden our hearts to the suffering outside. Now, what is that? The rich, we're talking about billionaires. The clever, we're talking about technocrats. And the powerful, we're talking about political leaders.
Gee, what does that sound like?
Right? And they all say, we're saving the last remnants of human society. They're saving their own asses.
Right.
Is what they are. And they are so incredibly bored with the living that, as a matter of fact, there's a creeping plague going through the vortex called the apathetics. And these are people that they're alive, but they just check out. They just stand there or lie there. They don't speak. They do nothing. They feed them. I mean, others in the vortex feed them so they don't starve to death. I guess it really wouldn't matter, though, because then they would just keep getting remade. But they do nothing. And ultimately, that would have ended the vortex as well. But there's another plan to end the vortex. I'm going to throw it over to you, Walker. What else would you have to say about this film? Because just to tell you the truth, we're the two biggest fans of this film.
we're the actual fans, and then Bob and Larry were forced to watch the movie and have the episode on this. So I'm okay with spoiling this because I think anybody who's tuned into the podcast knows that we're going to go into detail.
Okay.
I mean, I think you've done a great job of explaining what's going on and setting the table. And Zed becomes this catalyst, right? It's a plot within a plot, basically, because Frayne has planted the seeds for the Eternals to finally get what they want, which is death.
Right.
By over the years doing a selective breeding program with the exterminators, and finally coming up with Zed, who is actually, as it turns out, one of the Eternals who's doing tests on Zed discovers that he's actually mentally and physically superior to the Eternals. And as they explore this with him, and eventually they wind up endowing him with their mental capabilities and their knowledge and everything else.
Well, I had read somewhere that somehow he was bred to bring an end to the Eternals, to bring to death.
Yeah, so Arthur Frayne, Zardoz, had been going out with his giant stone head and selectively breeding different people. I think Zed even says at one point, only my mother and father and myself were allowed to breed. We were special, and so on and so forth. And so these people, like Lord Blood-Rah said, the Eternals became so incredibly bored with their existence that he began creating this plan to allow them to eventually die by bringing in Zed, who is kind of the wild card.
And for them to die, they needed somebody powerful enough to destroy the Eternal Tabernacle. Because when the Tabernacle was created, the creators erased the memory of how it was created and how it could be turned off. So these people, they're basically condemned to immortality. They don't know, they have no memory of how the thing works. They just know that it does. And Arthur Frayne bred Zardoz to be powerful enough and smart enough to come in and figure out how to destroy the tabernacle. Therefore, these people could die.
Right. Essentially, the tabernacle is an AI. Doesn't this sound familiar, right? It's like an all-powerful AI that's also, incorporated into all of their systems. They have their little rings that they can consult it. So they're wired into it.
And the implanted crystal.
Right. They have a crystal too. So, this technology is pervasive in their lives, and they're somewhat beholden to it as well. Which, again, it's like very reflective, I think, of what we see now with all of us with our little boxes in front, our little squares in front of us, and we're looking at them all day. Right? They have their little rings that project images, and they talk to it, and they're reliant on it. And yeah, just like you were drawing the parallels with the technocrats, well, here's the AI running everything, right? We're all terrified of the AI, or we're all excited to have the AI do our work for us. Same thing. But yeah, Zed is the only one who can come in and actually battle the AI, the tabernacle, and overcome it. Although, you could look at it now and say, well, this looks kind of goofy, and some of it to a modern eye might look a little goofy, but I think the story, you can enjoy the story, you can get past that,
I really think that a lot of people, look at it and it seems really goofy, but I'm wondering if the vortex was a gleaming futuristic city that was much more associated with high technology and immortals living in this technologically advanced civilization, rather than, let's face it, a bunch of hippies.
bunch of hippies on a
But
farm.
it's a bunch of hippies dressed like, it's a combination of Haight-Ashbury and a Renaissance fair.
Yeah.
Really. It's kind of the dress.
Back
code.
then, if they did that, the city would be like Logan's Run, probably.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, you think about it, yeah. Like, I was looking at, like, what were some of the films were contemporary to this, and just a few years before that, like 71, you had Andromeda Strain, and you had Clockwork Orange and Omega Man. In 72, there was Conquest. I'm only talking about like major studio movies.
Yeah.
In 72, you had like Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. You had Silent Running. 73, you had Soylent Green and Westworld. In 74, the same year as this, Phase 4. I don't know if you guys remember Phase 4.
Yes.
That was
the Ants.
Right.
Like the year after this, in 75, we had like Rollerball and the Stepford Wives. So it was all still very much, and then Logan's Run in 76.
Yeah.
So it was all of that pre-Star Wars sci-fi that all was very messagey and very much
very
about
dour.
Yeah.
Very dour.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things
someone was commenting that all the films in the 70s, science fiction films of the 70s, were all pretty dour until Star Wars came along, and suddenly it was like light and hope and action and shoot 'em up and whatever.
Pew,
so.
pew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I told the group I went ahead and purchased a copy of the DVD, the consensus was why. So, and then the DVD I got was for a different region, so I couldn't play it.
Oh no!
Yeah,
I ended up, I got to get a refund, but I ended up doing what Bob did and just streamed it.
Yeah, I've got.
The only reason I questioned you getting the DVD is because I knew you weren't a fan. So
I've never watched it before, believe it or not. I've seen pieces of
really?
it. Yeah, and so when I was watching this, I was writing down some of the notes. The pacing and stuff was very much like The Wicker Man to me, with Christopher Lee, and that ended terribly though. But there was a lot going on, and I think people don't think that's the case, but a lot of those films that you mentioned in this 70s time period, Walker, had those kinds of messages. Also, The Vortex reminded me of The Prisoner, The Village. At first, you're trying to be like, well, why is this, and why? Then as the story goes along, you start figuring things out. Zardoz reminded me of Vol from Star Trek. This huge monolith, and it just provides for them, and they're forever young. Battlestar Galactica, the recent one, the Cylons, they didn't die at the point of death.
Yeah,
their consciousness and all the experience download into whatever model they had. So I'll tell you, I enjoyed it. I think the pacing was 70s pacing. A lot of those 70s dystopian films were kind of like, but it did have a clear message, and I liked and appreciated that there were distinct chapters to the story, beginning towards the end, and you understood more as the film. Not to knock Devil's Reign, I love Devil's Reign. A lot of that, as we discussed, was like, huh, what? Right. Hey, Albert, okay. And I'm wondering, I forgot to look this up. Was this Sean Connery's first role after he left the Bond?
I believe it was, because they said that Boorman got him really cheap, like $200,000 for the whole movie.
Yeah,
it was basically because he was in a slump. No one was really hiring him after Bond. Roger Moore had taken over, so they kind of forgot about him at that point. And he also wanted a role that would be like the opposite of Bond, and boy, did he find something.
Which this was, right?
Because he wanted to break the stereotype,
right?
And so he actually, after this, he went on to Robin and Marion and all these other films that,
right.
He
went back to space in Outlander. Was it Outlander? Was that?
That was like
Or
80 something.
Outland.
Outland. Yeah, it was in 80. Right, 'cause it was after Alien.
84, something like that.
Yeah.
And before this one, he did Deliverance, and he wanted Burt Reynolds for the Sean Connery role, and Burt Reynolds was sick, which is good because I don't think Burt Reynolds could have pulled this off. With Sean Connery, he's got that rugged, really rugged nature to him.
Oh yeah,
where he could pull it off. Burt Reynolds, I think there would be too much of a twinkle in the eye.
Yeah.
Between the two of them, who has the most chest hair?
Oh, that could be a draw.
I'm going Connery.
Yeah, but they needed Connery and his what do you call it, machismo?
Yeah,
because one of the things that they're sort of pointing out in the film is the men, so the Eternals, by virtue of being immortal and everything, they're not reproducing anymore.
Right.
And the men have become pretty effete, and they even basically say that they can't see, we're a PG rated podcast. they can no longer
Viagra doesn't work.
There's no lead in the pencil anymore.
Yeah, exactly. We get a whole scene where they're trying to stimulate Zed because they're trying to show that he can still do this.
Limp dick syndrome. So
yes,
by showing him films, by the way, by showing him films. It's not that kind of film. They weren't. It was the only stimulus they gave him was showing him a film.
Well, at one point they're doing like the thing, and he's like this with this legs up on the table, and it's like, what am I watching?
He was standing there watching these films, which was basically like a woman's breasts being lathered up in the shower, and then
two naked women
there's like a scene of like mud wrestlers, and he's just standing there, nothing. And then what's the name of the character?
Consuela.
Consuela comes up, stands in front of him, and all of a sudden it's like whoop.
Yeah.
And she's looking like, whoa, I don't understand.
And Consuela, there are two other characters, May and Consuela. Consuela does not want him to exist. She wants the animal killed. It's a beast. It's dangerous. It's upsetting the balance of society. Kill it.
They call him the monster, right?
A monster. Yeah. A monster, a beast. Yeah. They keep him in a cage with the other animals. Right. Yeah, they keep him in a cage outside. May is a scientist. And May says, this is the first contact we've had with the outside world in years. We have to find out what's going on out there. And she is the one that discovers that he's been genetically engineered. He is a superior human being. He could do almost anything. Not fly, not superhero kind of thing. He is a superior man. And it terrifies her. And she even says, you need to be destroyed because you could destroy us. And he says, can you forget what you know about me? And she agrees only because she wants to examine him further. She wants to test his limit.
He's probably not the best example of society outside of the Eternals.
No, he is not.
No.
Yeah. He is not. But he's like in between. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Because everybody else, and they have scenes of the brutals that the exterminators hunt, and they're living in hovels, tattered clothing, living in the remnants of what are left of cities. They don't say what the catastrophe is. They don't say nuclear war. They don't say that. You get a feeling that it's climate change, and maybe they've found a way to master it with inside the vortexes.
Yeah.
Because everything else looks pretty desolate and desert-like.
Seems like maybe some sort of ecological disaster.
Right.
They have those like walls or plexiglass or whatever, right? Because he's waving at his friends, and he doing a little mime thing trying to get out.
Right, right. So like a beast of burden, they put him to work, basically like
Like
a
a cart.
donkey towing a cart full of bread. Green
Green bread.
Yeah, to just
Molded
throwing them out to various people, bread delivery is what he's doing. And the character's name is Friend, that goes with him. Yeah, Friend, that goes with him and kind of explains to him what's going on in the vortex. It's through Friend that we find the apathetics.
Mm-hmm.
And it's through Friend that and there is a scene where through the rings, which are basically projectors, computers, it's the internet of what they there's a trial going on. And this other guy is accused of transmitting negative thoughts at second level. Second level is the way they kind of mentally commune. It's the way that they meditate all together.
Telepathically, yeah.
And it takes their place of sleep. They don't sleep. They just go to second level and meditate together. And this guy was accused of projecting negative thoughts. And his face comes up on the projected screen and he says, "It's not my fault. These negative thoughts leaked through the head wound of my third death. I was not repaired correctly." And then he breaks down and says, "No, that's not true. I just hate you all. I hate you all. I hate myself." That's just the truth of it. And they condemn him to aging. You don't go to prison if you do anything wrong in this society. They age you. And if they age you enough, there's a third type of person in the vortex. You become a renegade. If they age you enough to the point where you become senile, but they don't let you die, they put you in this in this ballroom kind of thing where you're always like in a ballroom dancing situation, but it's decrepit and things falling off the wall, but there is a star ball in there, and it's all of these people that look like they're in their 80s and 90s, completely senile, out of their minds.
Yeah, that was creepy.
Yeah, in this area where the renegades are kept. That's their version of death. You're just put away with the rest of the senile, incredibly old people, but even they can't die.
Sadly, this reminded me of a convention Walker and I went to called the Sci-Fi Summit in Pasadena.
Oh.
And the actor that played Uncle Owen was
my God.
shaking, and
we
were walking around. There's all these old actors, and I don't know if it was his daughter who's just sign the bloody thing, you old fart. And he's like, what?
Elder abuse.
It was terrible.
Well, that's terrible.
And then we saw Jimmy Doohan, one of his last, conventions, and they had said he's doing this to make money for his daughter. Yeah, it was his daughter, right? Because he pulled a Totally Randall and had a baby like in his 80s. And he was like, it was just sad. So
same with like Basil Gogos.
Yeah,
I bought a Gorgo print off him, and his daughter, whoever wanted him to sign it, and he could barely even write his name.
Right.
And it's sad. And Stan Lee, his kids used to drag him around.
Yeah, that's right. We saw Stan. I still have that picture of him too.
Anyway, blanket wrapped around him. And
it was
Tim Curry at one of the Monster Paloozas. He was like, it'd be cool to meet Tim Curry. And he was in like a wheelchair and just like drooling, and it's just like,
wow.
There's a certain point where these people, their offspring, need to keep them at home. You don't need to.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't keep squeezing blood out of a turnip.
Right.
Well, they were doing that to Ozzy Osbourne on national television.
Yeah.
God.
He's doing one more show.
He's what now?
He's doing one more show with Black Sabbath.
Oh my God.
And the man can be, my son, I thought it was on tour, but my son, that they were doing a tour. My son said, no, it's one show, 3 songs.
Wow.
And that's all he can do. And then hopefully Sharon will let him alone.
Oh my God.
How
much money do they need to get out of it?
Exactly.
We could go on and on. I was thinking of another
You know,
singer, but let's get back to.
One of the things about this film, some of the backstory, John Boorman, so kind of mentioned he had done Deliverance in 72. So he was a hot director. And one of the things he really wanted to do was he wanted to do a movie based on the Arthurian legends. And of course, he finally did do that in 81 with Excalibur, which is one of my absolute
But he also wanted to do
movies.
Lord of the Rings, right?
Well, what happened was he wanted to do the Arthurian stories, and United Arts said, well, we've got the rights to Lord of the Rings. And they encouraged him to try and do that. And so he did struggle with, trying to put together Lord of the Rings. But at that time, it was just a daunting task to figure out how you were going to adapt Lord of the Rings. And he had this concept for Zardoz, but it was a very different concept initially, which involved much more. It was funny, like you were saying, Lord Blood-Rah, about like hippie communes. It was really much more about an idea about a guy trying to find, I think, his daughter in a hippie commune, and him being this like outsider going into these and then the whole thing somehow evolved into what we got with Zardoz. I don't know if you have any more to fill in to that space, but
no, not. I know that it was going to be a very, very different, and it was going to be set like only a couple of years in the future,
right?
Instead of like 300 years later.
But
this initial concept was very different. How it morphed into this?
I'm not sure. I mean, he definitely had things he wanted to say about society and technology and so forth, but then it wound up turning into this science fiction film, and there weren't a lot of people who wanted to touch it once they saw where it was going. It wasn't a very expensive film. I know you're saying, like Bob, that they got Connery cheaply, but he did take up, like, I think either 20% or more of the film's budget. So,
well, he was doing things too. Like, he realized that there was a limited budget, so instead of like they had a budget to hire a car to bring him to the set every day, and he basically just drove his own car. And then he also stayed in Boorman's house and paid his wife like rent to be able to stay there because it was closer to the set. And it was all shot like Ireland, right? Out there.
I think so, yeah.
It was not far from Boorman's home, and Boorman had his wife be the costume designer, which I got to say, the outfits.
She's the one to blame.
Well, I do think it makes it hard to take a lot of it seriously when both the men and women are walking around in these little, like, I don't know, macrame halter tops, and of course the outfit with Connery. I feel like that bears a lot of the reason why people just look at it and go, nope, or they just laugh at it.
Well, there's a lot of like gratuitous boobage in there.
Oh, there is. There's a lot of boobies in there.
Hey, there's a couple of scenes where Sean's left buttock is kind of hanging out of that. Little costume there too.
I'll tell you though, as far as the costume goes, after years of Renaissance fairs, I was fine with it. I'm like, sure, okay, yeah.
I get it.
And when you think about it, they're also living in a totally climate-controlled area, so they can dress as flimsily as they want.
This is true,
right?
I challenge any of our viewers or listeners or anyone here in the podcast, next time there's a Ren fair, to go dressed as Sean Connery or as Zed from Zardoz.
I've seen more revealing than that.
Really?
There was a guy that went as, for reasons he only knew, as a barbarian. So again, the butt cheek kind of hanging out, kind of a lion's fur kind of thing, carrying a sword. I think he was doing Conan. So he was wearing even less than Sean Connery. He was more buff than Sean Connery.
I will accept that challenge, Bob, and I will have a sign saying the penis is not so evil. I'll get arrested or thrown out.
You'll get arrested. Yeah, right.
It depends on what
Most
game
likely.
you're referring to.
Right. So, back to the movie. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, so Zardoz.
I don't know. I know it's hard for some people to look at and take seriously, but I like a lot of the concepts in this.
Yeah.
And there's certain sequences. I really love that sequence when Zed is in the library, and Frayne has kind of lured him into the library, and then he starts. Okay, so he kind of sort of like Tarzan, I guess. He kind of taught himself to read and everything. Right. And then he discovers the book.
This is outside the vortex.
Yes.
Outside the vortex. Yeah.
His whole reason for going into the vortex, basically, because he's lost faith in his God, and he has to, break in there. And we get that whole scene with him kind of running down the rows of books, and he's throws the book, and you see the Wizard of Oz on the cover of the book is The Wizard of Oz. Zardoz.
And he puts it together in his mind. It's about a false god, essentially. And because the way he finds the book is he's going through this old library, hunting Brutals, and somebody holds this book out. And he sees it, and he's about to shoot the book, and the guy says, stop. And being a magician, he just, Arthur Frayne, you find out later it was Arthur Frayne that gave him the book. He just lets it go, and it's kind of dangling there. There goes up to it, and okay. So he reads the rest of the library. Then he puts it together after basically growing his mentality. Zardoz is false. Zardoz is a false god. I'm going to get inside the head and go to a vortex and see what's really going on. Because there's a whole scene where he's trying to confess to May. May wants to know, why are you here? And he says to find the truth. And she's like, no, I know it's not. You want revenge. And he's like, no, I want the truth. And it's almost like his higher self is debating with his more brutal self. It's like, no, I'm after the truth. I need the truth. Then he finally breaks down and says, no, I want revenge. I want revenge for what Zardoz has done to us, for the lie. Oh, and by the way, we didn't say before, the Brutals, all the Brutals did, I'm sorry, not the Brutals, the Exterminators, all they did was hunt the Brutals. They killed. They killed and they loved killing. And Zardoz told them to love killing, therefore they loved killing. Then Zardoz told them, okay, stop the killing now, round up the Brutals and make them grow wheat. Because the vortex was running out of land, or no, they needed to feed people who weren't productive. They needed to feed the apathetic.
Right, all the apathetics, yeah.
So they were growing wheat to make bread to feed the apathetics. And that really set Zed off, because they're like, no, we're killers. Why is our God doing this to us? Why is God telling us to do this?
Well, not only that, but he specifically says, we eat meat.
We eat meat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Why
right.
are we growing this?
We don't need this.
Eat meat.
Yeah. It also puts that together too. Who needs this wheat? Why does God need wheat? What does God want with a starship, right?
It'd be a good steak.
Right, yeah. So that's why he goes into the vortex. And there's a dinner scene where they're basically saying, they're trying to figure out, do we keep him? Do we keep Zed? Do we kill him? What do we do? And they decide to meditate on it. And Friend has had enough. He has had absolutely enough. He doesn't want to be with them anymore. And he says, I'm not going to go to second level with you. I hate you. I hate this entire society. And they basically knock him out with their minds. Essentially, you think he's dead, but he's not.
That for me was a hard scene to watch. The way that actor was like, no.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to go. It's almost like rape.
But then there was always like sentencing people to like a year, 5 years, whatever.
Right.
But no, he got what, like 30 years or something.
Something.
And
Yeah.
he was immediately put in the ballroom with the disco ball.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Tough scene.
Where Zed runs to when he doesn't know where Friend is, he runs into the ballroom with the renegades and finds Friend, who initially attacks him and has the renegades attack him.
Well, and he's old and his face is kind of like deformed.
Yeah.
Like
It's
one
like
side.
almost stroke victim kind of, half his face is drooping. Yeah. And he says, Friend says to him, or he says to Friend, "What do you want?" And he says, "Death. We want death. We all want death." And he says, Zed says, "Well, then fight for death. How do you destroy the tabernacle?" And he said, "We can't remember. No one knows. But the man who created the tabernacle is there, and he's like 560 years old. He's bedridden, barely alive, but being kept alive. And he basically tells him, go find May. May can give him some kind of inkling because she's a scientist. So he goes and finds May, and she kind of fills him in. Huh?
But then he dies after he says that.
Oh, the guy? No, he dies later.
Oh, okay.
He dies after the tabernacle is destroyed. Yeah. So May basically fills him in on what's going on. And Consuela comes in and finds them and says, oh, this is what you wanted with Zed, because she's topless and they're lying, talking essentially. I don't believe they have sex. And she says, oh, this is what you wanted with Zed. There's a name for this.
I need to concentrate.
Right. Yeah. She says there's a name for this, bestiality.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah. And because they see, that's the thing. They don't consider other human beings human beings.
Mm-hmm.
What does that remind you of?
Yeah.
Amazing. Anyway, Consuela like attacks him with her mind, and he fights her off. And it's the first time he's able to do that. First time anybody's been able to fight off another person with their mind. And the effort of it makes him go blind. Yeah, and Consuela's like, well, we he's out of control. We have to kill him. And she leaves. It's like, I can't kill him by myself. So she runs out to get everybody else to kill him. Meanwhile, the mystic in the group, Avalo, who is kind of very ethereal, witchy kind of philosopher mystic, takes Zed and heals him, brings back his eyesight, and tells him, she gives him a leaf and says, your strength is incredible, but it will fail you at some point. Eat this leaf, because she's also a botanist. Eat this leaf, it'll restore your strength. So he's okay. And when does Friend come? I'm losing track now. Friend comes back into where he was working, his museum in the Vortex.
Right.
Yeah. There's kind of a big showdown. They're trying to hunt down Zed.
Mm-hmm.
The people of the Vortex, they can't find him. And Zed is there with May, who has a gun now and is thinking, no, he's got to be destroyed. And Friend comes in. And the big kind of showdown is May wants to use Zed as breeding stock because she thinks that the Vortex can be perfected, that their genetic materials have just gotten flabby, gotten weak. With Zed's blood, they can perfect it. Friend says, no, we've had an eternity to do that. This needs to end. And Zed agrees. Zed says, yeah, this is against life. The tabernacle has to die. So he essentially figures out what the tabernacle is. And it turns out it is a crystal. It's a crystal. It's a crystalline computer, supercomputer, essentially. And it's linked to all of the crystals in these people's heads. And because he's Zed, he's able to enter the crystal. And this I thought was pretty weak. The way he destroys the tabernacle is what he finds a flaw in the crystal and shoots it. And the tabernacle says, I am no more. Like, I would have expected something a bit more
You got me.
dramatic than that. But anyway, he destroys the tabernacle. So the tabernacle will not repair or regenerate anybody anymore. That's when he goes to the renegades and the old guy dies. And it's the first death they've seen in hundreds of years. The people are still hunting Zed, as I remember.
Mm-hmm.
But then Consuelo finds him, and she realizes I can't kill you. I can't do it. And she actually at that point, realizing that she can't kill him, falls in love with him.
That was a little
Which was a bit weird, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, that was a bit.
kill
Oh, that's a bit sudden. She wants to destroy him because he's going to destroy their society. Now she's in love with him. Well, all right.
But he does lose his strength because he does eat that leaf at some point.
He does they have him inside one of these inflatable bubble things where they keep their hydroponics.
Right.
And they're beating the hell out of him inside this thing, and he breaks through the supposedly indestructible plastic. Yeah. And at one point inside the museum, when the crowds are coming in to kill him, he tells May and a friend, "Stay inside my aura." And he walks through the. Yeah, it's like the Force, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's walking through the museum, and people are scattering out of his way as he walks through.
Backwards.
And the things that, go ahead.
It's backwards.
It's backwards.
Yeah, he makes everything go backwards.
Yeah, the things they've destroyed are now like whole again and things like that. Yeah,
that was one super.
So he can reverse time. Yeah, right, exactly.
He's superhuman.
Right.
Spinach.
So everybody, they kind of come to the realization, okay, the tabernacle no longer works. So Avalo, the kind of mystic woman, who had she made Zed promise, when the time comes, because I know you can do this, when the time comes, I want you to take me out. I want you to kill me. He says, he agrees. She's standing out in the town square in this fountain, and she says, it is our end. We can now say yes to death, but never more no. And she says to Zed, fulfill your promise. And he takes the gun and points it at her and says, I can't. That's not me anymore. That brutal side of me is gone. But she gets shot. And it turns out that the tabernacle being destroyed let down the walls of the vortex. So now the exterminators are coming in. And all the exterminators do is shoot whatever moves. That's all they know to do. And instead of these people, it's darkly hilarious. Instead of these people running from them, they're running towards them. Saying, yes, kill me. Kill me. And they're like, what the hell? They're blowing these people away that are running towards them wanting to die, which is kind of a darkly humorous thing. And Zed and Consuela escape. Oh, I forgot about May. May says, as part of her bargain, she has followers. She says to him, we will teach you everything that we know. And that's when he really becomes superhuman, is that they give him their knowledge as well, which makes him, again, mentally a superhuman. She says, we will teach you everything we know, but I have followers. You have to inseminate all of us. And thankfully they didn't show that, but he does. And
line him up.
Yeah, he's quick. And one of the final scenes is there were five of them, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
And they're on horseback, just going off into the wasteland, pregnant, each one of them, to raise their children. Consuela and Zed leave what's left of the vortex and enter the stone head. The stone head has crashed. That's how they know the tabernacle has really been destroyed, as the stone head just falls out of the sky and crashes. And the last scene I think is absolutely remarkable is they go into the stone head. Consuela gives birth. Not at that moment, but it's a while later that gives birth. And then the final scene is Zed and Consuela sitting there. She's nursing a baby. Then it fades to there's a young man sitting next to them. Fades to the young man's a little older. They're all a little older. Young man grows up. They're semi middle-aged. The young man gets up and walks away. Consuela reaches for him, and Zed takes her hand, and they hold hands together until each of them age into skeletons, giving you a look at the years passing for them. And that's the end. Now, I would contend, like we were talking about The Wicker Man before.
Yeah.
I would contend that this is a happy ending.
It is.
Because everybody got what they want.
Well, they lived happily ever after, but they somewhat lived happily ever after. I don't know how happy they were sitting there.
Yeah, I mean they seem to love each other, and
One thing interesting about that scene though was I had read that they shot it once.
Oh God! Yeah.
And they lost the film.
Yep.
So they shot it again.
Yep.
And the film was exposed.
Yep.
So they had to shoot it a third time. And keep in mind, every time they shot it, Sean Connery and the actress had to go through all these makeup changes over and over and over again.
All of that.
But yeah, they had to shoot it like 3 times before they finally got it right.
Yeah.
Connery was pissed.
Yeah.
Like royally pissed.
He wanted to kill the guy.
Yeah. He did not want to have to do all that makeup.
All the incompetence.
Yeah.
Boston.
Despite our description of the film, which sounds weirder in description than it does seeing it. Well, no, that's not true. It's a weird film. It's a psychedelic science fiction film.
Yes.
Some it'll be weirder just watching it.
Maybe. Maybe, but I would highly recommend giving it a shot.
Oh,
I really would. Just kind of, with an open mind, watch it. And
I mean, you have to put it in the context of its times.
Yes.
You have to understand, kind of when it was made, what was happening, budgetary limitations, and all those things. I think Boorman had grand ideas, and maybe it was a little beyond his reach. But I don't want to ding somebody for trying,
Right. Yeah.
And I really do love to see science fiction that has a lot of great ideas.
Yeah.
Because so often I feel like, as much as I love Star Wars, I feel like a lot of the science fiction we got after Star Wars was very much pew pew,
Exactly.
and I feel like we lost a lot of the. It's a lot more has come back, and we've got a lot more philosophical and political. I mean, we were talking about Andor before we came on, and that, and a lot of other shows. We're getting a lot of great content, a lot of things to think about.
Speaking of Star Wars, though, there were at least a couple actresses in Zardoz that had the Princess Leia double.
Oh yeah. That's right. That's true. That's true. I noticed that. Yeah.
So yeah, but not very many bare breasts in Star Wars.
No.
So
No,
boobies.
although I think George Lucas tried, but
He said no bras in outer space.
yeah. Carrie Fisher, totally convinced that there's no bras in the future.
But yeah, I think it's a really interesting movie. Like you said, if you can go into it open-minded and just kind of let it wash over you.
I'll
Get past the costume design.
Oh yeah.
No, I know one thing about movies then too was, and this, I'll point out, it's like sometimes they get enamored by their effects. So, whether it's 2001 and all the light effects going, or whether it's Star Trek the Motion Picture and the fly through of V'ger, or whether it's anything like that. With this, it's mirrors and prisms. And they do those over and over and over.
There's the scene where May and her followers are teaching and getting inseminated by Zed. And he says, are we going to have time to do this? And she says, we will do it outside of time. And that whole sequence is Sean Connery and these women, these followers, mostly topless. One was on top of him, but anyway, with these projections of great works of art over their. It's really a beautiful sequence of these works of art over their bodies, symbolizing that yes, they're being inseminated, but also they're passing all of this knowledge of culture and society and science into him.
Mm-hmm.
Really,
that was cool.
Yeah, it was nicely done. A bit long.
Well, that was sort of like a Maurice Binder Bond opening, where he would always project all the images over the naked women. And
yeah.
The vibe I got from that was 2001. You know, when Bowman is making the trip in what is it, through the monolith in Jupiter or whatever. You know, and you had a lot of projections on the helmet, but then you had all the things going past, and I felt like that they were trying to achieve kind of a similar thing with, again, a very limited budget, but
well, I'll give it this.
Appeal to the hippies out there.
You're not going to watch another movie like Zardoz. It was its own story.
It is easily one of the most unique science fiction.
And you're not going to see a sequel. What kills me now is they make sequels just to make sequels.
Yeah.
You know, maybe someone's going to be ballsy and make a prequel, which would be interesting.
Oh Lord.
But
no one's wanted to remake it or reimagine it.
Zardoz, the TV show.
Yeah. And there were no copycat, which is great. You know,
no.
You look out there, there's all these copies of copies and stuff. So I give it that.
Yeah. But maybe not specifically, but kind of thematically. I mean, the themes of perfect societies going wrong and you know, technology basically destroying mankind in the guise of trying to help it. All of those themes are
the themes exist, but the way they put it together in this package.
This totally unique.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. The tagline for the trailer is one of my favorites. I've seen the future and it doesn't work. I love that. And this film has, excuse me, one of my favorite lines of dialogue in it. And it's right at the end when everybody's getting shot. Arthur Frayne and Friend. Arthur Frayne confronts Zed and says, well, you know, this was all my planning. I genetically engineered you and I led you into the vortex. And so I knew this was all going to happen. And Zed says, I've looked into the force that put that idea in your head. You've been bred and led yourself. And he turns and he walks away. And Friend turns to Arthur Frayne and says, they trade off the line. We've all been used and reused and abused and amused. I love that. I mean, that's life, right?
That's life.
That is life. We've all been used and reused and abused, and with any luck, amused.
Yep. Yep.
Love that. I love the way this film was written. I love the dialogue in this film, although it in itself is very strange.
It also is distinctly British.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The sensibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
One of my favorites from the 70s. You pointed out, you're never going to see another film like it.
No, yeah. If you guys haven't seen this, it's cheap on Amazon. You can get a 48-hour rental.
Yeah, I did. It was $3.79. Yeah, it's funny. It was on. You can get on YouTube standard def for $3.99, or you can go to Amazon Prime and get it high def for $3.79. 20 cents.
I would definitely get it high def because some of the cinematography is really beautiful. It's really.
You can pay under $10 and own it.
Or you can pay.
My 48 hours is not quite up, by the way.
Or if you can find the DVD. I had trouble finding a reasonably priced DVD, and the damn thing didn't work. So
somebody hasn't upgraded and done like a nice Blu-ray, like Shout Factory or somebody like that.
Yeah,
there
right.
may
Nice
be
4K.
Yeah, there might be some sort of legal issues with it.
Apparently, it's popular to us, but not that much outside of Planet 8.
No,
very divisive.
I think you might find it's got a pretty strong cult following. But yeah, I'll be curious to see what comments we might get on this as far as I can't stand it or I love it. So
John Boorman said that it passed from failure to cult classic without ever passing through success.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I would like one of those Zardoz masks that that the soldiers were wearing, and
it's like two faces too, one in front.
Back.
Yeah,
going on the back shelf there.
I thought you were going to wear it out.
Could do that too.
I wanted to see a bit more about the exterminator culture, because one of some of the masks were just pure stone white, and then other ones were red. So I'm imagining if your mask was red, you were blooded, right? You've killed, you've gone off on a hunt, successful hunts. You have the right to wear. This is all supposition.
Yeah, they never say. So
all right, Lord Blood-Rah, I'm going to look for the rights to Zardoz, and you and I are going to work on that prequel series.
I was going to say
prequel series.
Zardoz fan fiction here.
Yeah. You know what? There's got to be. There's got to be.
Friend came upon far. Oh no, that was Kirk and Spock. Never mind. All right. Well, this was a good podcast. This was fun. Any last minute thoughts or comments? You know what always happens? What always happens is, the day that the podcast goes out or a couple of days after we record, we're like, I forgot to mention.
Of course. Yeah.
Everyone, go out and kill.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say, definitely see it. Definitely give it a shot. And watch it beginning to end. If it's not your cup of tea right at the beginning, get through it. It builds, and the pieces of the puzzle come together throughout the film.
Mm-hmm.
They do. Absolutely. And anything we missed, Don, that's why you're out there, buddy. You let us know in the comments. Appreciate all you listeners and the comments that you give us on YouTube. So please keep that up. We're going to get into our censor suite, but before I forget, we're just under 600 viewers on YouTube. So please, if you haven't already subscribe, share the podcast with your friends. We'd love to get over 600, over 1,000, but we can't do it without you. So that's your homework assignment. We have Lord Blood-Rah here with us. So Lord Blood-Rah, if you can share, this episode's going out. You guys should be watching this or listening if you're listening on the podcast apps out there. May 22nd. So Lord Blood-Rah, any news you want to share? Anything upcoming or?
I've got a string of brand new episodes coming out on YouTube. The latest one was Ring of Terror. Well, as of when this comes out, there's a string of new episodes. You can go to my YouTube channel and check it out. The way you can find all of the stuff that I do is go to lordbloodrah.com, and you'll find episodes of the TV series there, Nerve-Wracking Theater, the podcast, Nerve-Wracking Auditorium, Captain Paxar's Star Cadet Hour, all of my merchandise, all of that at lordbloodrah.com. So
excellent.
Check it out. Excuse me.
Thank you. Bob.
Well, I can harp a little more on Godzilla Fest.
Yay.
I did speak with Adam, who owns the Balboa Theater. So our show in July. We have a lineup of films, but they're currently out booking the films. So probably next episode I'll have a list of what movies we'll be showing. Some good ones though. Just think anniversaries. There's a lot of anniversaries this year. So if you think about the anniversaries, then you'll know what we're trying to show. The convention itself in September, tickets are on sale now. Get them while they're hot. Go to GodzillaFest.com and check it all out. Big shout out to Cheryl Lancaster for putting that website together for us. She did an amazing job. So,
absolutely.
All right.
Keeping in the Japanese vein of things, I found this book, nice hardcover book, Photo Archive. Now, if you're looking on YouTube and I slowly lift it up, you say, oh, that's the monster Aegon. But he was also in Space Giants. So it's a photo archive of the Space Giants. And the interior, just beautiful, big color photos. Not a lot of text, so you don't have to worry if you can't speak Japanese. But yeah, definitely a very cool book, and I will cherish it always. But there's a good picture of Goldar on the back. Right off there, but
where could people get that from, Bob?
This one I think was Monsters in Motion, right? Larry Buck picked one up as well.
I did. I found mine on eBay.
Oh, eBay. Okay.
Yeah. It has really good pictures. I think I put mine away, but they have like the cast, and they're all like together, like posing and stuff. It's really, and they have the monsters, and they have photos from the sets and stuff. It is a beautiful.
Here's a little bit of trivia for you. Space Giants in Japan was Magma Taishi. Premiered 1 week before Ultraman.
Ooh.
So Magma Taishi is actually the very first color TV series ever to appear in Japan. Beating Ultraman by 1 week.
Interesting.
And if you go back to the comics of Magma Taishi, those were created by the Disney of Japan, Osamu Tezuka, who also created Astro Boy and Kimba and Gigantor and a bunch of others. So, yeah, rich heritage of Space Giants.
That is cool. Waka.
Waka-san.
Waka.
Let's see. What can I tell you guys about? Well, first we'll see if it'll show up here. Yes. I have my little paperback novelization of Zardoz by John Boorman himself. An incredibly thin book at about 127 pages, and very literal to the movie. It pretty much goes scene by scene, I think, for the film.
So it doesn't really reveal anything that you don't already know?
A couple years ago, I think it was pretty much exactly like the movie. It might have had a little more insight into things, but I don't remember sitting there going, "Oh wow, this completely changes what I thought." I think it's pretty much like the movie. Although I did look before we started, and it doesn't have the prologue with Arthur Frayne because he did not plan that. That wasn't his thing.
The publisher didn't make him put it in.
No. Otherwise, I am still plugging away on my YouTube channel, Echoes from the Satellite. Didn't get a show out this week because weekend was absolutely crazy and I haven't gotten stuff done. But my last show was on some science fiction magazines from the 70s that I picked up at a little mini con here in Phoenix called Old Man Con. And picked up a couple of, there were 3 Marvel magazines. I think one was Unknown Worlds of Science Fiction. Very nice. there was a Marvel previews, which was like Gods from Outer Space or Coming of the Space Gods. It was the whole Eric Von Däniken Charity of the Gods things.
Right.
An issue of Planet of the Apes magazine. So it was some nice stuff that I picked up and kind of walked through. And then I'll be doing. I just finished. I'll post these soon. A review of a book called Tomoe Gozen, which was about a female samurai in a very mythological version of Japan. And then, because I know Bob and Larry are such big 2001 fans, I came across a book by Arthur C. Clarke, which is about his experience in making 2001. And I think I'm going to put together an episode that includes that book and another book about how 2001 was made.
Cool.
Nice.
So,
was Starlog magazine 70s or was that into the 80s?
Late 70s, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
yes, Starlog came around in the 70s. I want to say like mid 70s, but yeah, it was definitely 70s.
Okay.
I know they did a lot of Star Trek, and then Star Wars hit, and then,
Then it was Star Wars, yeah.
Because then Fangoria came around in the early 80s.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There was a great magazine called Science Fiction Age from, that was the 80s. It was from the 80s. And it was a mixture of science fiction, fiction, and science fact and reporting on latest science things. It was really great magazine. It didn't last too long. It lasted for a couple of years. And I've got, I think, the entire run.
Wow.
I don't think I've even heard of that one.
See, we should do an episode where we all dig out our old magazines. We'll just share them for an hour.
That could be fun.
Check this one out.
Yeah.
It'll be a YouTube exclusive, so you guys can see all the pictures.
There you go.
Sounds fun. Bob has a heavy influence on some of these Japanese books, and I showed that Godzilla X Plus building. So I do have the Space Giants book, and it is beautiful. I mean, the pictures, and you can see Goldar's costume. The more they used it, the more cracks and creases are in the suit, because I don't think they ever meant for that high definition pictures to come out. But it's great. If you love the series, you're gonna love the book.
When we did the Ultraman Fest last year, or the year before last, and they had some 4K episodes of Ultraman that we were showing on a Friday night.
Oh,
beautiful prints.
But
And they had the episode with Dada, and yeah, you could see that was like one of the last episodes they used the Type B Ultraman suit. And you can see like big rips in his elbows and his tatters and everything. His chest was all, like you say, cracking, and you could really see it on the big screen in 4K. It was amazing.
Sure. Be embarrassing to turn around. Are those boxers showing through the suit?
Well, it's Nakajima's thumb coming out of Godzilla's glove in Godzilla vs. Gigan.
Nakajima was such. We were talking about some of the older actors. He would go to Monster Palooza, and I think we had breakfast. And I remember going because they had like a buffet in the hotel, and the guy was like, eggs, and he's like, over easy. And the guy's like, oh, and he goes, Godzilla, Nakajima-san, and the guy's like, oh, okay,
Nice.
He's got Boris Karloff's, daughter walking around, and all these other actors and stuff. But he was such a charming individual, and Bob, you must have hundreds of stories with him.
Yeah, one of the first Monster Paloozas I went to, I wasn't getting very good internet reception in my room, so I went down to the lobby, and this is in Burbank, and I was like in a little bar area on a Surface Pro, and
knows that bar well.
And stuff. Yeah. And Shinichi Wakasa, who made all the Godzilla suits in the 2000s, he came down. He said, "Hey, Bob," and he comes over and sits down, and then we're talking. And then he looks up and he like gestures, and Nakajima comes walking over, And he sits down. So all three of us are sitting there chatting away. And it's like, but that's like one of those things where halfway through the conversation, you're thinking, God, I'm sitting here talking to these two guys. There's very much like a G-Fest I went to, and they had Peter Fernandez and Corinne Orr.
Oh.
Peter Fernandez did the voice of Speed Racer and Racer X. Corinne Orr did Trixie and Spritle. And so we went up to Peter Fernandez's room, and we're all sitting in there, we're all talking. And at one point, I just kind of closed my eyes. I'm like, man, we're having a conversation with Speed Racer and Trixie. Because they sounded just like it. It's like,
that's cool.
Those are great moments.
Absolutely. So you guys need to check out Echoes from the Satellite. I have a biased in it because it's my buddy, but they're really good episodes and insightful. And Walker has been influencing me for years on purchases and things, and this is the Planet of the Apes.
That's the issue I got.
Those of you on YouTube, I'm trying to avoid the glare.
So did you run out and buy that after she did?
I did. I was like, there's a Mark Leonard interview, because as we were, watching the TV show, I'm like, wow, because he really, he'd do the ape move, and, he's putting himself into it. It'd be great to have an interview, because there's very little stuff about the series out there, let alone the animated show. So Walker has this little camera set up. I assume I don't know how it's set up, but
very rickety stand is how it's set up.
But it, and she did like a page by page thing, and then I saw the interview. I'm like, oh. So these guys, though, I got it off of eBay. Anthony Snyder. You guys need to find them, and great. I mean, they were willing. I think I got the book for like $4.95. They wanted $12 for it, or 15, and
wow, that's an incredible price for that.
Oh, I was like flabbergasted. They're on eBay, but if you go to anthonyscollectibles.com, and they sent me this cool little sticker, and a thank you letter. I mean, it very sweet people. They didn't have to do all this, and I've never bought from them before, so that was cool. And thank you, Walker. For sharing that. It was good stuff.
Well, those ape magazines are nice because you can get the stories collected in the Boom Studios hardback books, but they don't have any of the articles. So getting those,
right?
Yeah, the magazines had a lot of nice articles in them.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get some more of these. I don't know if I'll get the whole series. Depends on.
I've got a lot of them. I've got a lot of them. I don't think I have the whole run, because some just disintegrated. Magazines fall apart. But I've got quite a few of them in a box somewhere.
Well, we can show them off when we do our magazine issue.
There we go.
When I went away to college, unfortunately, a lot of my magazines and my what were remember, like the Spider-Man versus
Giant
Superman?
Those
ones.
Yeah.
They all got chewed up by a bunch of insects.
Oh, no.
And they just had to go. Everything had to, even the cabinet had to go because it was just infested. So I lost all of those magazines, and I want to say it's not tabloid version, but you know what I'm talking about, the large books that Marvel and they were the great
like
big
giant
ones
size.
anyway.
Like they did Superman versus Spider-Man, right?
Right. Treasury editions.
Treasury, yeah. There was a giant-sized comic on 2001.
Mm-hmm. I've always wanted to get that.
I've got it. So again, got it somewhere. Written, drawn by Jack Kirby.
Jack Kirby, yeah. So I think I may buy a few more of those magazines. Be a little selective. I'm already running out of space, so I don't want to go crazy. I'm trying to get rid of stuff, not get stuff now. But
good luck.
Yeah, I know.
Back in the day, Walker and I used to play Hero Clicks. I don't have a click here little plastic figures, and they had a dial on the bottom, and you'd roll the dice, and it was the difference between their power and speed. And there was a map, and you'd, fight it out. And we had a friend who we'd play with, and so you had like 200 points, and the figures had like 25 points for this. Ben Grimm was 30 points. The Hulk was 50 points. So as you're building your team, you had to be aware of the amount of points you'd put together. And our friend would just, so here's Walker building the Fantastic Four. I'm doing part of the Avengers. And she'd just pick and choose like the most damage, and so you have like DC people mixed with Marvel people. Like, what the hell? But I found this beautiful banner. Being that the Fantastic Four movie's coming out.
Yes.
The Coming of Galactus World Event, summer of 2007. And this was sent out to the retailers.
Oh, HeroClix.
Of HeroClix, yeah. So if you're not on YouTube, after talking about all those books and magazines, go on there now so you can see this.
That Galactus was huge too.
Oh yeah, I remember we'd go to the conventions trying to get that figure. But anyway, this was off of eBay, so good luck finding it at a decent price. Before we go though, Bob's not a fan of Andor, which is cool. You like what you like, and you don't like what you don't like, and that's what fandom is all about. But the Lord Blood-Rah and Karen, and I don't want to spoil anything. I finished it. I know Lord Blood-Rah, you said you haven't finished it.
I haven't seen the finale yet.
I haven't finished it either.
Yeah. So maybe we'll talk in a couple of episodes down the line and see what you guys thought of it. But I love the first series. A lot of people didn't like the first series. It kind of dragged. It was slow, but it built to what's revealed in the second series. So if you guys haven't watched Andor, you should. Yeah. Let alone Rogue One. Oh man,
I need to see Rogue One now again. I've seen it before, but I need to see it again now.
I need to as well, because it's been a little bit. And there's some references to what happened went on in there, but
sure.
Anyway, you guys watching anything else? Anybody watching The Last of Us?
Oh yeah.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, I watched The Last of Us. Oh, and then Dead City started a couple up. It's on like episode 3, I think, or 4.
My buddy was and I feel like The Walking Dead, they should have struck while it was still hot. Now it's kind of like, to me.
Well, I don't know. I still enjoy it.
Yeah,
Negan is becoming Negan again too, so that's very cool.
Yeah.
So,
you guys out there, check it out if you want to comment on what you think of what is it called? Dead City?
Dead City.
Dead City.
And then I think the Daryl Dixon series starts up again pretty soon.
That's the one where
Daryl and Carol.
Like Daryl and Curl, Germany or France or
Daryl
something.
and Carol.
Cool. All right, folks. Well, another fun episode. Please follow us on all our social medias, all the Spotify's and Apple Podcasts and apps, and of course YouTube. And y'all take care of yourselves. Thank you very much. You want to run around in your Zardoz costume, just do it inside the house. Don't
At the next Renaissance Fair.
That's true. All right, my friends. Planet 8 signing off. Be safe. Yeah.
I will not go to second level with you.
Go forth and...
On that note, this will conclude this transmission from Planet 8. We would like to thank all of our intergalactic audience for listening. Be sure to head on over to our website at www.planet8podcast.com, where you can get more information on this episode's topic.
For more conversation, find us on Twitter at Planet8Cast.
Or on Facebook at facebook.com/Planet8Podcast.
We want to thank you guys for tuning in each and every episode. We look forward to your input and opinions. Until next time, this is Planet 8 signing off. End transmission.
By George, he's got it. It is the end.